Hey everybody, Sal Capaccio here, WGR Sports Radio 550, Bill's sideline reporter, inviting you to do what I do every Wednesday and Friday night. That's check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP, coming at you from Ontario, right on your Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. You can check it out every Wednesday and Friday night, just like I do. 30 Minutes Live with CDP.
Hey everybody, welcome to Live with CDP podcast today. As you guys can see, I'm wearing my Buffalo Bisons hat and my Buffalo Bisons jersey. So I'm looking forward to my guest today, Pat Malacaro, the radio voice of the Buffalo Bisons on 1520 ESPN in Buffalo. And I'm excited about talking to him about the Buffalo Bisons and the return to Saline Field after, I think, 711 days being away. And I guess with AAA baseball being canceled last year. And then this year, the Blue Jays playing in Buffalo until 2 weeks ago, I believe. So just guys, bear with me 1 second and I will bring on Pat. And I really appreciate Pat coming on today. In 1 second, guys. Hi, Pat. How you doing?
Good, Chris. Good to chat with you today.
Good. Can you hear and see me okay?
Loud and clear. Looking
Perfect.
good.
Yeah. Thank you. StreamYard's great. And just for you, I got my Bisons gear on, and I also put in the ballpark in my background too.
I love it. It's a beautiful background, and I hope you get to wear that Bisons jersey and cap down in Buffalo very soon.
Yes, I really like AAA baseball. It's like the American Hockey League in hockey. It's just slightly below Major League Baseball, but it's really, I love it because the ballpark is easy to get to from the Peace Bridge. Parking is good. Your ticket prices are more than reasonable, and you have good food. And it's a really nice ballpark.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you've had such great experiences. I know fans from Southern Ontario make up such a big part of our fan base. And that's the unfortunate part right now is they're not going to be able to come down to Saline Field, at least at the start for August the 10th as things stand right now. But, $10 general admission tickets. If you're a Bisons fan and you've maybe sat down the right field line before and never had the chance to sit between the baselines, between home plate or first base, and this would be your opportunity. So hopefully our friends in Southern Ontario, you included, will be able to come join us soon. And I just can't wait for a week away from now, from when we record this, to be able to be in the broadcast booth again. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I was going to say it's next Tuesday at 7:05 against Rochester Red Wings, if I'm correct.
Yep. Yeah, it'd be 4 homestands total, and they're 3 6-game series and a 5-game series at the end. So August the 10th is the first home game. I'm actually in Buffalo still helping get the ballpark ready to go and our broadcast set to go. And 7:05, we've got a great night planned for the first night of the season. We'll have a Friday night bash, which if you've been to a Friday night game before, we'll have a lot of fireworks throughout the course of the final 23 home games of the year. So it should be a really fun night at the ballpark. And like you mentioned at the outset, it's been 711 days, or will have been 711 days since the Bisons actually lost to Rochester at the end of the 2019 season, went on the road to Scranton, and then unfortunately have never come home since.
I was going to say, and the Blue Jays were at 660 days of being away from the Rogers Center. So that's a long time. That's hard to believe.
It is. And, I had the fortune of being at Saline Field last summer when the Blue Jays used downtown Buffalo as their home. And then again this year, helping out the folks from Toronto a little bit again. So, and that was great to see. We talk about the Bison fans coming back to games next week. It was great to see fans, period, at the ballpark. Some of the other work I've done, colleague of Sal Capaccio's at WGR helping out with the Sabre broadcasts. And whether it was the Blue Jays last summer or the Sabres this past winter into the spring, no fans, you get used to it after a while, but you could really feel that it was still missing. And when there was 14,000, albeit a lot of Red Sox fans for that final series in Buffalo last couple weeks ago, it was just great to hear that murmur of the ballpark of people just living and breathing with every ball and strike.
Yeah, my last sporting event actually was for pro sports was October 2019 when I saw my Philadelphia Eagles beat the Buffalo Bills at then New Era Field. I can't keep a track of the name of the stadium now. I think it's Highmark Stadium now, I believe. But I'm only an hour and a half, 2 hours from Buffalo. Before COVID, I was coming over once a month because I love going to the Bills games, even though I'm an Eagles fan, and then the Bisons and the Sabres. And everybody in Western New York has been great. And everybody in your industry, especially the Buffalo market, has been great with coming on my podcast too.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I'm somebody who I was born and raised in Buffalo, in the city itself, and a lot of my memories growing up were going over to Crystal Beach. My family had a cottage over there when I was very young, and it was always something we did. We always loved going across the border, and even one of the last things that I remember doing pre-COVID back in January of 2020 was going across the border on a Sunday afternoon and having some dinner up just across the border. So I myself, and I know a lot of people that I've grown up with, we've crossed the border and love to go to the other side. So I know the feeling's mutual for everybody. And, it's something we don't take for granted, and it isn't lost on us either.
Okay. Is it okay if I just show you a clip it's a couple years old, but it was just basically when you first took over the radio voice of the Buffalo Bisons? It's, I believe the clip's from WIVB. It's just like a 2-minute clip or whatever of when you took over for Ben Wagner. Is that okay? I usually do
Sure.
this with my guests, like to try to promote them on here with video footage. So it just 1 second. Can you hear it okay?
Despite all the soggy weather, baseball is back in Buffalo, although we're a bit of a hiatus for now.
Right.
Bison's home opener underway and on delay as we speak.
We've been showing you what's new at Coca-Cola Field all day on News 4. News 4's Allie Ingersoll continues our coverage this afternoon. She joins us live outside the ballpark to introduce us to the new voice of the herd. Allie.
Christy and Dave, yeah, not a great day for baseball today. Mother Nature currently winning out, but the Bisons are up right now, 3-2, top of the fifth during that rain delay. A lot of fans out here, they're pretty excited, but no one is as excited as Pat Malacaro. He is the new voice of the Buffalo Bisons, and he has been waiting for this game for a very, very long time.
And this was always the goal.
This South Buffalo boy is making himself right at home here in the Buffalo Bisons broadcast booth.
To me, this is sort of my major leagues, because growing up here, this is something I always aspired to and wanted to do.
Pat Malacaro has been called up to call games for the Buffalo Bisons, making his way through the farm system, starting his broadcasting career in Batavia with the Muck Dogs, before landing back at his home ballpark this season.
To finally get that opportunity, reach the goal that I wanted to reach in becoming the play-by-play voice of the Bisons.
Malacaro has been broadcasting for 10 years, but he's been affiliated with the Bisons off and on for almost 20. He spent his summers working as a bat boy here in the late 90s, and that's when he really fell in love with baseball and broadcasting.
I like to be able to tell stories. And, when you listen to games on the radio, you feel like you're a part of the booth. You feel like you're right there with the play-by-play guys or the color commentator.
The herd's new voice spends hours preparing for each game, taking notes, mingling with members of the team, making sure he knows the stories and stats about the players.
When you get a job in this capacity, there's a lot of expectations.
The Bison's newest broadcasting team member says he knows he has big shoes to fill, and he isn't focusing on what could come next if he could be tapped to call major league games like his predecessors. Instead, all of his attention is on this ballpark, this team, and this season.
To be able to tell stories and to talk to fans, and that's what I get nervous about, is not bringing the best broadcast forward and hoping I do that every game.
Now, Pat says that he doesn't really have a pregame ritual quite yet, but he does have a pump-up playlist he listens to. Some of the music on there includes Need to Breathe. That's an artist. He says if he had a walkout song, it would be the song Happiness by them. Now, if you want to listen to Pat and Duke call the games, all you have to do is tune into AM 1520 during every Bison's game. Now, we are keeping an eye on the turf, or on the tarp, rather. It's still covering the field here right now. Back in the studio, though, I know you guys are keeping an eye on the weather, so we're going to have you guys check in on that. The Bisons fans, I'm sure, will be.
Anyways, that clip is courtesy of WIVB Channel 4. I found it earlier today, Pat, and I thought I would play it on here if that was okay, because I like to do that with my guests. And I thought that was a nice little story they did on you there.
Yeah, Allie did a great job with it, and it brings back a lot of memories, because I know it was only a couple of years ago, but the season didn't start out all that great, actually. Looking back on 2018, we got postponed. The team was postponed 4 straight days in Rochester because it snowed so much. The tarp was literally stuck to the field. They couldn't pull it off because they were worried about ripping the turf out with it. So I had to wait 4 extra days to call my first game as the full-time play-by-play voice of the Bisons. And then the home opener had a rain delay. So, it was one of those things where the weather at the beginning of 2018 wasn't all that great, but it was a lot of fun, and it brings back a lot of fun times that, fortunately I'll have the chance to make new ones coming up in a couple of days.
What's it like being the fourth a radio play-by-play announcer in the Buffalo Bisons current era? Now, I know you took over from Ben Wagner, who's now with the Blue Jays, and then you took over from Jim, or before him was Jim Rosenhaus, who's now with the Cleveland Indians or the Guardians. Who was before Jim?
That's Pete Weber. He's currently with the Nashville Predators, and Pete and I actually had a fun conversation the other day because Pete was the play-by-play voice when the team moved from War Memorial Stadium to now Salem Field. It was then Pilot Field back in 1988. And he was probably the voice and one of the front-facing figures of the Bisons' push to be an expansion team in Major League Baseball, the teams that went to the Rockies and the Marlins. Well, Pete had a chance to finally see a Major League Baseball game at Salem Field. It was about 34 years too late. But, it was that exciting moment that I got to share with him recently. And it's an incredible honor. It's something, as a kid growing up and listening to Pete, and then I interned under Jim Rosenhaus, and then working with Ben Wagner, not only at home games, but helping him out on the road as well. It's something that I always worked for, like I mentioned in that piece with Allie. It's something that I always wanted to do. That was the goal for me. And to be the voice here in the modern era that is from Buffalo, growing up in watching and living and dying with the Bison, so to speak, over the years, that's something that I really take a lot of pride in.
And I had John Murphy on back in February, the voice of the Bills, who was kind enough to come on here. I think he called a couple of Bisons games too at one point, I believe.
Yeah, John Murphy did with Pete Weber. There's Greg Brown, who's currently with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was a broadcast member of the team as well. And my partner Duke McGuire has been one of the constants through it all. He's been somebody. If you've ever seen The Natural, he's one of the New York Knights in that movie, and he's in one of the final scenes. You'd see him clear as day. The hair might be a little more gray than it was back in 1983, but Duke definitely you can pick him out in that movie, and he's a great partner to work with. So there's been a lot of very good and talented people that have worked in the Bison's broadcast booth over the years, and very lucky to be just a small part of that group.
Okay. How hard was last year when there was no minor league baseball? How hard was that for you not being able to call some baseball games for the Bisons last year?
It was hard, but at the same time, we were all in the same boat, right? If you're a minor league broadcaster, and certainly in the major league side, teams didn't travel last year. So, Ben was calling Blue Jays games from studio at Sportsnet in Toronto. So it was difficult, but with what was going on, and that's the other thing too, is always trying to have perspective. And at the end of the day, we were safe and healthy here in Buffalo, myself and my family. So that was the most important thing. And knowing that baseball will be coming back at some point, it's of course the uncertainty of what will it look like when it comes back, and what will the restrictions be, or what will the responsibilities, the role be when we go back to baseball. But the fact that all the minor league broadcasters were pretty much in the same boat of not being able to call games, it really wasn't that big of an issue last year. And like I mentioned, I helped the Blue Jays, so I was around baseball even still in August and into September. So maybe that was a little, extra little nice thing to have, to be able to still go to the ballpark for 20-some games.
And I was going to say, I'm so happy for Ben Wagner, I guess the Sportsnet, the company which does Sportsnet, Rogers, which I'm a volunteer with, by the way. I never agreed with their decision, but I'm so glad they brought back Ben on radio, because I think he does a really good job on the radio. And to me, as a longtime baseball fan, I think radio is just as important as TV. And I think I hope teams don't get away from the radio broadcast of baseball games. Yeah,
Ben is a very good friend of mine. I was very happy for him. And when he told me the news last week, I could not have been more excited, and had a chance to tune in a couple of times over these first couple of games, and looking forward to listening to him a few more times, because there might be a few guys that are playing in the game for the Blue Jays in the next couple of days, that whether it's because players get healthy or just need to be sent down, there might be things that I need to know about those guys playing in Toronto right now. So it'd be good to hear Ben, and of course, Dan and Buck and Pat Tabler, all those guys do a great job, but it is fun to hear, and great to hear Ben back on the radio where he belongs.
Yeah, and I had Dan on here too, Dan Shulman, and he's great. And the thing with Dan is he could do both of them, like TV and radio, because he's got that kind of smooth thing. But I'm just like I said, always been a radio guy growing up in the '70s, listening to Ernie Howell and Paul Carey with the Tigers, and Tom Cheek and Jerry Howarth. I had Jerry on my podcast too. Super nice guy, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, and Jerry's somebody I had a chance to meet a couple of times, and you could not be more right. Anytime I was up at Rogers Center, always very friendly and wanted to know how things were in Buffalo, if there were players to watch, things like that, to help improve his perspective on the Blue Jays minor league system. So yeah, Dan and all those guys have been great over the years, and could not speak more highly of any of them.
Okay. Just let me know if you're pressed for time. I was just going to ask you some questions, if that's still okay, Pat.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, no problem. One thing I've learned too with the podcast, I started a year ago. I was doing everything by script, and one of my friends who's a Philly sports guy, he's a huge Eagles fan, face paint and all that. He's helped me out with my podcast too. He goes, it's okay to have questions prepared and all that, but you just talk to the guests like they're one of your friends, and that's sort of what I've been learning the past year as well, just to have an opening conversation instead of having everything all scripted and that.
Yeah, and that's what I try and do with my pregame interviews for business broadcasts. Is I have an idea of what I want to say, but at the end of the day, if a player wants to lead me in another direction, or I want to follow up on something, it's much better and much more easy to have that conversation as a conversation, not just a question and answer back and forth, for sure.
Definitely. So, okay, my first question I wanted to ask you, can you just tell my audience just a little bit about yourself, and when did you know you wanted to pursue a career in radio and sports casting?
Yeah, it really started when I worked for the Bisons in high school, and as a freshman, I had a relative who worked in the front office, and I just wanted a summer job, and I thought it'd be really fun to work at a baseball stadium and work around sports and see if I liked it at all, and if I did, maybe it's something I could do in the future. And that's where I got the bug. And, as the piece with Allie said, I was a bat boy for 4 years, and working in the clubhouse, getting to meet players and, see how they go about their day-to-day routines, and, the professionalism in their routines and the games themselves, and how well they treated me as the bat boy and the other people around the clubhouse. It really put the idea in my head that I might want to work in sports. And I always played sports, but I always thought the broadcasting side of it would be fun. And whenever I finished playing sports, that might be something I wanted to do. And quite honestly, I think if you had asked people when I was younger, if this is where I ended up, they might not necessarily think that would be the case, because I'm a pretty quiet person. I keep to myself for the most part, as opposed to what you might hear on the radio when I'm calling games. So it's a little bit different behind the mic, but something I really love to do. And I've really not wanted to do anything besides work in sports, and the ability to work for hometown teams. My career path is a little bit different than most, because just like players, a lot of times the minor league broadcasters will start out at a lower level, like I did, and I started in Batavia for 3 years, but then you move to A-ball, or maybe you can go right to AA and then eventually to AAA in the big leagues. Because I worked at WGR and helped out Sabre broadcast, because I grew up playing hockey, so that's really my first love, and I've always been a Sabres fan growing up. So wanting to work on those broadcasts and work in the broadcast that I grew up listening to was such an important thing to me. And then to be able to work for the Bisons as well and help out in a part-time capacity, I really had the best of both worlds. So I never went to AA. I really didn't. I didn't go to full season single A. I ended up in a pretty good spot here in Buffalo just by some hard work and some luck mixed in along the way. And here's where we are today.
Yeah, being in the right place at the right time too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's always a part of it.
And also, I've learned from this too, building contacts is very important in this industry as well.
Yeah, and because you never know who you might come across. And that's the one thing that maybe I missed a little bit last year, was not just trading messages with other broadcasters in the league, because, whether they may have seen a player that the Bisons or the Blue Jays may have just acquired, or, someone may be in a new team or whatever. And it's a lot of those interactions that you miss the most. But, you may work with somebody there's a handful of guys that are already in the big leagues that I've worked with in just a handful of years. So to have those contacts and, just to be able to use them as a resource or them use me as a resource in the future is always great. And I think that's one thing I learned in college is I had a professor who, when I went to Syracuse in the Newhouse School, he was a film producer, I believe it was, or he was a screenwriter. And we didn't have a test at the end of the semester, but he had all of our faces on a piece of paper. We had to write out who everybody was. And if you didn't get that right, you would not have got a passing grade, because he wanted to stress the importance of making connections, making contacts, just having those interactions with people will serve you down the road. And it was an important lesson that I learned in, I think, my junior year of college.
I was gonna say, and I'm doing this a little bit later in life, and I'm trying to do this without going to school for it. I've had one professor telling me just to keep doing the podcast on a weekly basis, just keep doing what I'm doing, try to keep improving. I do volunteer with Rogers TV as a camera operator here too, and I'm just hoping one day I'll have an opportunity in radio as well.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to have this opportunity. And that's one thing that really has come out of the past year plus year and a half is we had Zooms and podcasts and things like that before, but not on this level. So, for you to have so many people, whether it be Jerry Howarth or Dan Schulman or all these different folks that you have access to now, just because you're able to just pop a laptop or use a phone and video conference in. It's such great to have. And, that's one thing my parents always stressed with me was, put in the work and always follow the dream as long as possible. So whether it was, through college or through high school or a little bit later on, it's great to always have those opportunities. And I hope that you're able to reach whichever goal you're looking towards. Hopefully you can reach that sooner rather than later.
Well, thank you very much, and I've been very lucky with my guests. And like I said, I'm very appreciative of everybody coming on here. And StreamYard, which is different from Zoom, is great because I can put graphics on my podcast. I can put my branding, and I like to put video clips of my guests and all that stuff too. So I'm lucky I have the technology. I wish we had this 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 25, 30 years ago, we didn't have cell phones either. So it's amazing how far we've come. And, it's great to have this technology to be able to use it. And, hopefully the next time we chat, it won't be over a Zoom. As much as fun as I've had over this half hour, hopefully you'll be able to come down to a Bisons game and we can say hi in person and have a good time at the ballpark.
And also too, not just making contacts here, I've actually made quite a few friendships with people in your industry. And it's just amazing how everybody has taken me in as this 49-year-old rookie trying to get into radio. Everybody, like I said, Dave Jixter and Keith Rasford and John Murphy and all the guys from WGR. I might not live in Buffalo, but everybody there treats me like one of their own. And that's why I like coming to your area when I was able to cross the border.
Yeah, and one thing you probably hear throughout the course of time, and you hear it when you're in school and just starting out on the business, is it can be a difficult industry to break into, and you're looking for that one opportunity, maybe that's the right one, but that's the nice side of what you're talking about is the better side of the business and the industry that maybe for years didn't get talked about as much, but again through this medium and the ability of just over the last year, those making those contacts and talking to those people, and Keith Radford, somebody I grew up watching on Channel 7 here in Buffalo, and the ability to talk with those people is invaluable. And I'm sure if you have a question or something like that, or just want to critique, those are so important to us here in the business. You always have a wealth of people that are willing to do that, and that can be it just as helpful as picking up the phone and saying hi.
Definitely. And like I said, there's always something new to learn on each of my podcasts. And I like asking questions and I like learning new stuff. And after each podcast, I do what Jerry Howarth and Dan and many have told me. Always listen to your podcast again, like either live or on audio form. And then I go through it and see what I did okay, what I did good, or what I could have improved on better. So I do critique myself after each podcast.
And that's something I like to do in terms of my broadcasts. But the thing I don't do is I don't listen to the ones that I think I did really well. Just my own personality, and this is just my own personal look on things. I like to listen back to the ones where I thought I might have struggled a little bit or might not have had, my best stuff that day, even though I was, giving as much effort as I could, because, over the course of 140 games in a baseball season, normal baseball season, they're not all going to be 10 out of 10s. And I like to listen back, not because I want to, nitpick and pick apart what I've listened to, but where I could have improved, or the things that I maybe didn't pick up on, or the conversation that Duke and I were having that I kind of let go, and I should have listened back and kept it going a little bit longer. So the fun ones and the ones that I think are the best ones, I don't necessarily like to listen to, but it's the ones that I really want to try and challenge myself to improve from the difficult ones. And that, like I said, that's just me personally.
Okay, no, that's good advice. Like I said, any advice or any information my guests can give me, I like to use as well. So that's good to know. My next question I wanted to ask you, Pat. You already answered the first one, and I've improved my listening skills. At first I struggled at that, but you've already answered the first part of it, where you went to school, Syracuse, obviously. Good basketball and football program there. Donovan McNabb, the Eagles played at Syracuse too, by the way. This question is a second-ended question. Did you have any mentor or mentors when you were first starting out in the industry?
Yeah, Jim Rosenhaus was a big mentor of mine, because I interned under him in 2004 and 2005 with the Bisons. And that was really where I got the firm direction of broadcast play-by-play was where I wanted to go. It wasn't just a front office role, it was broadcasting. So just sitting in the booth with Rosie and Duke, he was working with Rosie at the time, just learning from them a little bit. I would sit in an empty suite early in the season, or sit in an empty broadcast booth and call a game into a mini disc recorder back then. That was the technology at the time, in between cassettes and the digital time we're in now. And he'd listen back to it, give me some critiques, and I always appreciated that. And the other person, really, it's unfortunate for me that he's no longer with us, but Wayne Fuller was somebody who I learned from a lot in Batavia in my 3 years there. And he was somebody who is a lifelong Batavia Muck Dog fan, broadcaster, lifelong Batavia broadcaster, and worked in Rochester as well. And somebody we worked a lot together. We traveled, we would do a lot of day trips to road games. So just sitting with him, and whether it was him talking about the old games he used to call in Rochester soccer, where they played against teams in Hawaii or New York City when Pele was playing in New York. All those different things that he'd experienced, and he kind of passed a lot of that down to me. And right before I got the Bison's job, Wayne passed away, and he was somebody that I really looked up to a lot, and helped me a long way. He's somebody who, like I mentioned, always was Mr. Batavia broadcasting, and somebody who really knew his roots and knew his audience. And that's one of the things that I really picked up a lot from Wayne, is knowing your audience, being a student of broadcasting and a student of the game, and being somebody who kind of is like a historian in real time of a baseball game, of a broadcast. And that's kind of what I've modeled a lot of my broadcasting style after, is Wayne and Rosie as well.
Okay, good to know. Because I find when I ask my guests this question, the mentors in most cases are really important in helping people get into radio and stuff like that. So, yeah, thank you for answering that question. And Jim, I'm not a Cleveland fan, but him and Tom Hamilton do a really good job on the Cleveland broadcast, which is going to be called the Guardians. I'm going to have to get used to that.
Yeah, and I'm glad for the Blue Jays that they're back in Toronto now, but I was kind of looking forward to, looking ahead to the schedule, that Cleveland would have been in Buffalo, and it had been an opportunity to see Rosie. I haven't really seen him in person recently over the last couple of years, but since 2018, when Cleveland was in Toronto, actually, I got a great photo of Ben, Jim, and myself on the field pregame, something that I have in my office here at home. And it would have been fun to see him, but I'm glad that the Blue Jays are back in Toronto, and I guess I'll have to wait another year to say hi to Rosie.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like going to Cleveland for baseball games too. It's a nice ballpark. I still want to call it Jacobs Field, but it's Progressive Field now. So
Yeah, and now that's the nice thing about growing up in Buffalo. And unfortunately, we don't have a major league team here. But whether it was an hour and a half in the border to go to Toronto, 3 hours you go to Cleveland, 3 hours you're down to Pittsburgh. So we always had the opportunities. And as a kid growing up, once a year, my dad would take me and then eventually my brother as well. Some other relatives, we'd go to a Cleveland game. I grew up an Oakland A's fan, so we always looked at the newspaper and when the schedules came out and tried to cross-reference, back before we had the internet, when Oakland would be in Cleveland. And some of my best memories of watching baseball as a kid was going to Old Municipal Stadium and seeing Oakland against Cleveland. And even, as a young kid with a Oakland A's cap on, I usually found my way to a free souvenir for one of the players. So that was always fun.
yeah, when I was growing up too, my late father took me to the games in Toronto at both the old C&E Stadium and the Skydome, and then Taggart Stadium in Detroit, the Veteran Stadium in Philadelphia, and then lately I've been to 13 ballparks. My goal, Pat, is to go to every Major League Baseball park, and then I would like to work on the minor league parks because I've been to Erie so far, which is nice, and Buffalo, obviously, and I would like to do some more minor league parks in the future.
So it begs the question. I'm going to turn the tables for a second. Do you consider Salem Field a major league ballpark now that it's hosted the Blue Jays for 2 years? And do you
That's
consider
true.
TD Stadium or TD Ballpark in Dunedin a big league park?
That's true, and I like what they did with the changes with Celine Field and all that. One question: are they going to keep the fence blue, or are they going to go back to the green type fence?
Well, I know for now, for the rest of this season, definitely it's going to stay blue. And it's one thing I think still has to be decided whether or not, and it'd be changing out wall pads. So there are blue wall pads on there now, but we actually, in 2018, I believe it was, got brand new wall pads because ours had to be replaced. So I'm not sure what's going to end up happening. The only thing I do know is when you've been down to the ballpark, you'll probably notice that on the 325 markers straight down the line, in left and right field, there was a standing buffalo.
Yes.
When the Blue Jays were here, it was the red maple leaf. From what I understand, it'll be the standing buffalo when the Bisons are home next week. So whether that's permanently on blue wall pads with a standing buffalo on there, I'm not sure yet. But that's one of those little details that we like to have in place, hopefully before August the 10th.
Okay, and I guess you guys get all new lighting, LED lights, and all of that as well now.
Yeah, and that was one thing last year, just because of how quickly the transition had to happen. The lights at the ballpark were upgraded, but they weren't fully upgraded to a major league standard. There were last year there were temporary light fixtures that were raised as the game would start right before batting practice, and they would go up on a crane and go up on the outsides of the ballpark. This year, the light stanchions were completely replaced, and we've got this brand new great lighting, just like if you've seen a Yankees game, when the Yankees hit a home run, the lights start flashing, they start strobing, and that's what the lights at our ballpark will now strobe when a Bison player hits a home run, just like for the Jays. I know we won't have the foghorn like up at Rogers Center, but we'll definitely have the same strobe light effect that the Blue Jays had, and it's really going to be a nice upgrade going forward.
I was going to say, and yeah, like I said, a lot of the changes in that ballpark, I can't believe it's from 1988, but yeah, I think it's going to be around for a long time. I really enjoy it because it's a great view, and I don't think there's a bad seat in the house at all, and the location is great too.
Yeah, and that's some of the things we take pride in. Is it was really not only was it built to be expanded, and that's if you've ever been to the ballpark, for the folks that are watching this tonight, the roof could literally be taken off and built upon where the 200 level is, because the plan was to expand out the upper deck if the Bison's minor league affiliate got Major League Baseball. So that went from what was a 22,000 seat stadium when it first opened. It could have been expanded. The capacity basically doubled by just adding what would be a third deck onto the ballpark and some other seating. But that never happened. But you can still see a lot of the elements of what it was like 34 years ago when the ballpark first opened. And going back downtown. It was the Rock Pile, the old War Memorial Stadium was still in the city, but it wasn't downtown necessarily. So moving the stadium back downtown and then the retro look of the ballpark is something we take a lot of pride in, because after that, you have Camden Yards, and the same group, HOK group at the time, built Camden Yards. A lot of the same elements they took from then Pilot Field. So, that was the couple of things of moving the stadium back downtown, and then also that retro look of the ballpark were things that were done specifically in Buffalo, and then in a lot of cases used on the major league level years later.
I was going to say, and I think what the Jays did with the field, the grass field, looks awesome, especially on TV. And I'm hoping one day Toronto, I'm not a fan of the Rogers Center or Skydome. I hope one day Toronto can build an outdoor ballpark similar to what you have in Buffalo.
Yeah, and I guess it'd bring back the old days of all the old exhibition stadium in the early parts of the year if it doesn't have a dome, and you could have a couple of games with snow on the field. So that's something we deal with down here every year in April. And like I mentioned, we got postponed our first handful of games in 18. You just learn to live with it, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions, Pat, if that's okay. You still good for time?
Sure.
Okay. How did you come about working for WGR 550, and what was your first job in radio?
That was my first job in radio.
Okay.
And I started working there in 2006. And quite honestly, it's another case where I had a relative who just had a great connection with somebody at then Entercom. Now it's now Odyssey, our parent company. And I had an interview with the station general manager, and we talked sports for about a half hour. I met with the program director. Andy Roth was our program director back in 2006. And I just started working nights and weekends. It's the old, you work a lot of nights, work a lot of weekends, a lot of holidays. I've worked Thanksgiving, I've worked Christmas, you name it, 4th of July, all those holidays. I've worked them all over the course of now 15 years. It'll be this December at WGR. And I always wanted to be, again, like the goal was to be on the Bison broadcast at some point. My goal was to work on the Sabre broadcast because as a kid growing up, I would go to a lot of Sabre games with my dad, or my uncle would take me a lot. And we'd listen to the post-game show, the roundtable, on the way home, and just listening to some of the greats of Buffalo radio and them breaking down the game or talking to the players, taking phone calls. That was my goal once I started working at WGR, was to be a part of that in some way. And, I didn't mention him before, but I guess I really should mention Paul Hamilton, who's our reporter at WGR for the Sabres, and he covers the Bills, as somebody who is a mentor of mine. From the time I started working on the broadcasts, I've worked with Brian Koziel for the entire time I've worked on those broadcasts. Paul is somebody who has not only become a mentor, but a great friend of mine as well. I think I can call him a great friend now. He's somebody I've really, if I've had an issue or he needs to let me know something, I have no problem going to him. He has no problem coming to me and letting me know something. So he's somebody that I've always looked to as somebody who's helped me, and to be working on a broadcast with Paul and Brian on a game-by-game basis. And whether we have our own roundtable or when I would fill in for Paul, I've a handful of times I've taken over as the Sabres reporter on an interim role when Paul needed some time off. It's something I've really taken, I really enjoy doing it and love doing it. Like I mentioned, having grown up playing hockey my entire life, it's something I've kind of grown up on the ice being from Buffalo. So that's where I got my start.
Okay, I was going to say, and Brian told me the similar story. I had Brian on here a few months ago too with Paul Hamilton. I guess he's helped and worked with a lot of the newer people with your station and the Sabres broadcast. And that helps you too when somebody like him, who's been in the profession a long time, takes the time to give you advice and give you guidance and all that.
Absolutely. At the time, Paul's more than 40 years in the business now. At the time, he was almost 30 years in. How can you not learn and want to learn from somebody who is called a Wayne Gretzky goal in the past, or interviewed Wayne Gretzky in the past, or talked to some of the greatest ever in hockey and in football, and in certain times gone toe to toe with a certain athlete, whether it was the line of questioning or how to ask a question, because it's one thing to ask a question, but it's being able to get an answer a lot of times is a part of the nuance of it as well, and something I'm sure other guests have mentioned in the past. So just Paul working with me on, how to formulate your questions and how to really listen to the player and how to be able to react to some of their answers as well. And that's about as great of advice as anybody could have given me.
And one thing I've learned too, Pat, here is when I had Ken Daniels from the Red Wings on, I brought up his late son, Jamie Daniels. He has a foundation for his late son. And I've learned how to open up with some guests. Sometimes you just ask a guest a question and then it can break the ice. What's the term? Yeah, break the ice, I guess. And then they open up, because there's been a few guests where at first it took a few minutes, but then when they realize they can trust you and you're asking good questions, then you can build a rapport with them.
Yeah, and that's something you kind of just have to learn as you go, and you can be told certain things, and Paul has helped me with that. But then you're on your own to kind of work through that. So yeah, it's something that I think everybody has to learn in some capacity of how to build that relationship with whoever you're talking to. And a lot of cases you're just talking to a player for 3-4 minutes at the most, and if you're in an interview where there's 5 or 6 other people, you only may get 1 or 2 questions. And so how to ask it the right way, or how to get that trust so that the next time you talk to that player, they trust you enough to, really give you an honest and open answer and in something that informs the listener and you. So that really is something that is really, something that you kind of just have to learn.
And I try to watch a lot of guys on TV and radio on how they ask questions. Like the lady in Toronto, Hazel Mays. I like how she does her interviews with the Blue Jay players of the other team. She it's not like an interview; it's like just a conversation and just talking to them like a regular person. And it just seems to get more people out of there. Like, I think she's one of the best in the business.
Yeah, Hazel's great. And
Yep.
if you ever go down to spring training or see her, pregame, that's how she is in person. Hazel is not, the way she conveys, herself to the player and to the viewer is how she is in person. So, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about just, very good people in the industry and wanting to help you. And, Hazel's somebody that when I first went to spring training a couple of years ago, her and her photographer at the time, I had the opportunity to ride with them to a spring training game and just, talk to them a little bit. And they made me feel very welcome in that setting. So yeah, you could not ask for some better people to watch and follow and learn from.
Okay. But next question I wanted to ask you, Pat, what do you enjoy the most about radio as a reporter, anchor, producer, and as a play-by-play voice of the Bills? And then my other part is, what is the hardest aspect of the industry? And can you just tell my audience just quickly a little bit about being the manager of media relations for the Buffalo Bisons?
Sure. So I'll start with that one. It's the easy one. In minor league baseball, you're not only in a lot of cases just the radio play-by-play voice or the ticket operations person. You're always wearing a lot of different hats and in a lot of different roles. So, a lot of it is just when the Blue Jays is now on the Bison. So making sure that our roster's up to date, that the folks in Lehigh Valley have that information, and we do a daily game notes, which all teams do. I'm in charge of making sure those are distributed every day. So that's a good chunk of my morning is putting together the game notes for that day, updating player statistics, the roster moves, maybe who the starting pitcher is that day, and putting all that together, sending out to our media here in Buffalo and the media that covers the Blue Jays and some other folks along the way, and making sure all that's ready to go. As simple as if a media member wants to come to a Bisons game, making sure they have a credential at our credentialing table and making sure they have a spot in our press box, all those different things, helping to arrange for a player interview pregame. If during batting practice, a member of the media wants to talk to, whether it's a player or Casey Candela, our manager, post game, making sure our Zooms are set up and run properly. So that's a lot of the media relations side of it. And it just, it's part of being the minor league broadcaster is you're involved with the team so much, embedded with them when we're on the road coming up again soon. So it's such an easy responsibility to take on. And then, the thing I like the most, and this is, I just enjoy being in the booth with my broadcast partner, or when we get on the road, and not just because you're going to new cities or different cities, but getting to see other fans and getting to see other teams. Because the one constant I've really found of broadcasters that either move on to higher levels or leave the international league, you always come back to, it's the people you miss the most. It's the whether it's the press box attendant, the person in Syracuse, Donnie, always takes great care of us, makes sure that we have everything we need when we go to Syracuse. And, he puts a sign on the door welcoming us, and how many hours and days and months it's been since our last trip there. It's those little things that over the course of 140 game season, when you're traveling, on average every other week, and, you're not sleeping at home for 7 days at a time. And it's a fun life. It's not something I take for granted, but it definitely, those little things and those people you meet along the way are what makes it fun when you're on the road, or, those little places that you might go to for breakfast or for lunch before a game that make it nice. And the hardest part of it is, just making sure you're doing the best job you can. Like I said, over the course of 140 games, you're not going to always have your A game, but making sure that you are giving your best effort, to me, is always something that I strive for. And it's something that, when you get to July and you're over game 100, sometimes you can start to feel a little bit, but not letting that happen, and making sure that the people listening have the best broadcast that you can put forward, I think, is really something that I try and keep a conscious watch over.
And Jerry Howells was saying that too. Consistency. And also he was telling me about how Jack Morris came in to the booth in 2013, and when the score wasn't so good, Jack would kind of be quiet, and Jerry basically told me the words complete game. Treat a broadcast or even my podcast like a complete game. Just do the best you can, but be consistent every time you do a podcast or a baseball play-by-play game as well.
Yeah, and that's great advice, and something that strive for, and have fun in the process, because when you're having fun, the time seems to go a lot quicker. So that's always something I try and remember, is have fun with the broadcast. At the end of the day, if Duke and I are having a good time, that usually means that our listeners are having a good time as well.
Okay, and I'll just get two more questions. You okay for a couple more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. My other question was, what was it? I guess you already answered the first part of it, so I'll just ask you the second part of the question. What's it like working alongside Duke McGuire, who's been doing the Bisons games for many, many years?
It's great. I can't wait to be back in the broadcast booth with him August 10th, because not only is he a great person, and he's made the transition into the full-time play-by-play voice that much easier for me, especially 2018, but just the knowledge he has, having been drafted and played professional baseball, having managed even at one point, in his time throughout his baseball travels, all that he brings to the table, and letting him be the expert, and making sure that people know that he's the expert on our broadcasts. He makes it easy, and he brings a lot of fun and a lot of levity to it. So that's one thing. Duke has been great to work with. Somebody I've known, since 2004, when I started helping out in the booth, and always very welcoming, and really making you feel like, whether it's your first day there or your 1,000th day there, that you're a part of it, is really, he makes it really easy.
I was going to say, obviously you'll be doing the home games starting next week. Are you guys going to be doing the road games this year, broadcasting, or are you guys going to do that from your home, I guess? How that works?
The plan is to go on the road, and it's still kind of finalizing it. But the plan is to do all the road games and be in those cities. I'll travel for those. So looking forward to, and that's the one thing in the big leagues. I know the setup is a lot easier because you've got a lot more camera angles. In the minors, you're watching the game broadcast as it's happening. So there are a lot harder things to do in life. I understand that. But to call a broadcast and to be able to give the listeners your best, it's not the ideal setup. So the ability to go on the road for the final 4 road trips of the year is really going to be a nice thing to have under our belt.
I was going to say, and after not doing it for a year and a half, I think we're all going to appreciate things more than we did before, maybe.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. I can't wait for just a handful of days from now.
Okay. I just two more questions I wanted to ask you quick. I had to ask you this one because what's your predictions on the 21-22 Sabres? And what do you see? What are your expectations for this 2021 Buffalo Bills team?
Well, for the Bills, I expect them to win the AFC East again, and I expect them to be, in the hunt, so to speak. That's a term we used to throw around here all the time, seeing when the Bills would be in the hunt in December and never make the playoffs, but really in the conversation for AFC Championship, and not just to play in the game, but to really make some headway this year and be a force to be reckoned with in the AFC and a chance to represent the conference in the Super Bowl. I don't think that's outside the realm of expectation. Josh Allen, pending good health, will be it. I think he took a great step forward last year in terms of his quarterback abilities and what he can do with a team that didn't have a running game really in the playoffs for sure, and then towards the tail end of the season. So if they are able to get a running game going to complement what Josh Allen and his wide receivers can do, I think the sky's the limit. The defense got better as the year went on last year, and having Starla Tulele back as somebody who can just be the people eater up the middle and really take on the offensive line and something that the Bills didn't have necessarily last year might open some lanes for guys like AJ Epinesa, who was warm as a rookie last year, and I think he's going to have a lot of good games ahead of him still in just his second season. And for the Sabres, I look at this roster and I look at this coaching staff as the right coaching staff for this team. And I don't want to I don't think this is a playoff team for the Sabres, but I don't want to, I don't have a prediction on where they're going to finish, but I do think that there are going to be a lot of players that we saw take a step forward or get back to where they were prior to 2020 and 2021 and take that next step. I think a player like Rasmus Dahlin, who regressed under Ralph Kruger, I think you could easily see the progress under Don Granato in a handful of games. Henry Jokiharju was a great defensive trade for the Sabres, flipping for Alex Nylander at the time to Chicago. And he took a step back. Jokiharju played worse under Kruger and then better under Don Granato. And then on the offensive side of things, what is Tage Thompson going to do this year? Can he continue to be a better player than he was over his first year and a half with the Sabres? So it's the players I'll be watching to see if they continue to get better than necessarily an actual standings record-wise.
Okay. Jake, quick answer on this one. Jack Eichel remain a Sabre, or do you think he'll be moved on, traded?
I think we're to the point where Jack Eichel will be on a new team, and I think that's the biggest challenge ahead for Kevin Adams, and one that definitely will. I don't have any reason to think he won't be able to, if that comes to light, get a good deal for the Sabres.
Okay. And what is your favorite Buffalo sports memory and your favorite Bisons player you've seen play and interview?
Well, I mean, I was at the comeback game for the Bills. I know like the million other people in Western New York, but I actually do have the ticket stubs to prove it in the game program. So yeah, I wouldn't let my dad leave at halftime as a kid. It was a Saturday afternoon. He took the day off of work, and I said, let's just stay for a little bit longer. So I was there for that, and I had the good fortune of being at the overtime game against the New Jersey Devils in the 94 playoffs when the Sabres and Devils went, a handful of overtimes, and the game-winning goal there for Dave Hannon was, I didn't stay for that one. We didn't stay for the end because being, I think, in 94, I was probably 10 years old. My brother was 6. So once it got to probably 11 o'clock around midnight, I'm sure both of us were ready to call it a night. So, I've had the good fortune of being at some of the great moments in Buffalo sports history just by happenstance. And then favorite Bisons player I've interviewed, that's a really good one. I don't remember a single interview, but I remember a lot of just being able to get a lot out of players in terms of, having them open up a little bit. And I think of Ricky Romero as somebody that I had the opportunity to talk to when he was optioned to the Bisons and, really looking to get back to the big leagues. But I remember a conversation I had with him in Pawtucket, and you could tell as the interview went on, he got more comfortable and he really opened up and gave some great answers. So that's one that I remember. I mean, in terms of players, I mean, I bat-boyed when Manny Ramirez was on a major league rehab assignment with the Bisons. Just some of the all-time greats in a Cleveland Indians uniform came through Buffalo, whether it was as a draft pick and a prospect or on a rehab assignment. I mean, having a chance to do a post-game interview with Jose Bautista after he had a rehab assignment with the Bisons, just talking to him as he came off the field, interviewed him in the dugout before we went to break in post-game. Just things like that over the years have been just moments that really stick out and things I really have enjoyed.
Yeah, and I guess they should have rewarded it as most memorable player, because it's hard to have a favorite player or players in this. So I should have said most memorable, but I always like to ask those questions too.
And honestly, there's a lot of players like somebody who's Jeremy Ware, who's actually from, I think, Orangeville, Ontario, somebody who was a player on the Bisons in 2002, and he was a role player and even was in the Expos organization for a while, went back to the Montreal system late in that 2002 season. And after I went away to college, I had a radio show, and I literally sent a letter to probably over 100 former players that played on the Bisons, and he was one of them. And even though he didn't respond to the letter right away, he was somebody who in 2019, I still had the same cell phone number. He called the cell phone number I left to arrange an interview with, and him and his family came down to a Bisons game. So there's a lot of players, not just guys that made the big leagues, but people that have represented, whether I know he represented Canada, I think in the 2000 or 2004 Olympics, I believe it was at one point. So there's a lot of just good people that have played for the Bisons over the years that I remember as well.
And I believe Jeremy's from Guelph, because I remember Guelph, and I think he went to the same high school with me as well.
Okay, so there's the connection there.
Yes, small world. And apparently, when I was talking to, who was it, talking to Brad before, Brad, who's your assistant GM, he was mentioning Scott Diamond was with the Bisons for a short time, and he was from Guelph, Ontario too.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of great players come over the years from Canada, and Andrew Albers, Jeff Francis, and I think the two of them may have played in the Pan Am games at the same time that they were on the Bisons. So yeah, I've had a lot of players from just over the other side of the border.
Okay. I got one last question for you, but before I ask that last question, AAA baseball this year, they're not having a playoff format. Are they still doing playoffs, or are they just going to have champions from each division? How'll that work?
So whoever has the best record at the end of the season will be the league champion in AAA East. But there's also, I think, what they call the stretch run. It's 10 games were added to our schedule. The lower levels are having playoffs, but because there are the potential for guys on the 40-man roster to be in the big leagues, our season mirrors the end of the regular season in the big leagues, October 3rd. So they added 10 games, and Tuesday are off days, but the Bisons will have an extra homestand of 5 days against Lehigh Valley, and they'll close the season with a Wednesday through Sunday series at Syracuse. Those are the extra 10 games added to the schedule.
And the team's record, I think, is 46-29 right now, I believe.
Yep, heading into tonight's game, 46-29, and I believe only because we don't have the standings that way, I think it's 4 games back of Durham for the best record in AAA East.
Okay, and Bison's MVP, from what I see, is Kevin Smith, your shortstop.
Yeah, far and away. And when you talk to folks, he had a bad 2019. There's no two ways about it. But it was just a blip on the radar for Kevin Smith. So that was a tough year in 19, and maybe his prospect status took a hit, but he hit better than 300 in the month of July. And to be hitting over 300, he was 302, the high watermark of his batting average this year. That came just about a week ago. To get your batting average to that point, he's hitting 297 entering tonight's game at Lehigh Valley. That shows a lot for a guy who had never played AAA baseball before.
Wow. Did not know that.
Yeah.
And he'll probably be one of the guys the Blue Jays call up, yes, in September, I believe.
Well, that's the unique thing now is, the old way of things. If you're on the 40-man roster, you're eligible to be called up. But now with rosters being at 26 players, part of the bargaining agreement between the players and the owners, you only get 2 extra spots in September. So whether it's someone on the 40-man currently, or whether you want to add somebody like Kevin Smith, you have to create a spot for them, because I don't believe he's on the 40-man roster as of right now. I don't think he's been he may have been Rule 5 eligible last year, but just not taken because of the down year he had in 2019. But definitely somebody that if he's not on the 40-man roster this winter for sure, I'm sure other teams would love to have a player like him be on their big league roster come 2022.
Okay, good to know. I did not know that they changed that. Is that just because of the pandemic, or is that going to be a new thing now with Major League Baseball and the minor leagues?
That was going to be something heading into 2020 permanent. And then I think because of the pandemic, it kind of got lost in the shuffle of what the rosters were going to look like. But yeah, 26 players permanently, and then 28 once September 1st rolls around. Because some of those games you'd see teams that clinch the playoff spot and they don't need any of the regulars. You've got 10 guys pitching in the game, and it takes 4 hours for a game that doesn't do anything in the standings. I think Major League Baseball and the players realized that things needed to be changed a little bit.
Okay. Last question, Pat. And again, I want to say thank you for coming on. And I'm sorry I kept you a little bit too long. I just love talking sports and learning about your profession and the Buffalo Bisons. And I was going to say, my last question is, do you have any advice, not just for myself, but anyone that's watching or listening that is looking to pursue a career in radio? And where can my audience find you also on social media?
My best advice is try and learn something from whatever experience you're in. And I didn't always work in broadcasting. I've had other jobs throughout the course of trying to get to where I am today, but I've always tried to take something from it. And whether it be an interaction with somebody that would help me in the future, or a skill that I didn't learn or know I had, and try and apply it to broadcasting. I think it's just advice in general of anybody. People, I've spoken to classes before, and that's the thing I say is whether you're going into broadcasting or want to be a doctor or want to be whatever it is in life, I think the ability to learn from whatever situation you're in can really help you and help you attain that goal that you're striving towards. And it's easier said than done, but if you have that passion and want to do something like broadcasting, try and find ways like you're doing, whether it's, at 49 years old, having a podcast and interacting with other media members and making contacts and creating those relationships, or if it's somebody who's just 19 trying to figure out how to get into college radio and build up a resume there. I think that's just, being able to do that and get involved and learn from it as much as possible is something I think is invaluable. And you can see it. You can find me on social media at PatWGR. That's my social media, my Twitter account. And that's where, all my Bisons related, Sabres related, just in general, anything related tweets might be. So love to keep the followers in tune with what's going on. And every once in a while, sprinkle in, the cities we're in, what we might be doing that day, and different places we might be visiting, and what golf courses over the last 18 months I might have played over and over and over again. So that's where you can find me.
Sure.
Okay. And also on Odyssey.com, WGR550 as well. And one of my podcasts this weekend, I've got two young guys from the intercounty baseball here in Ontario, London Majors. And one of the color analysts is only a 15-year-old. I wouldn't call him a kid. I think he's going to have a bright future in broadcasting. So I'm looking forward to talking to these guys. His name's Dylan, and it's going to be nice to talk to these guys because they're very young, but they seem to have a bright future in broadcasting.
That's awesome. And getting the opportunity at that age is so important too. And being able to learn and all those different things that you and I may have learned, many years after 15. So that's great to hear. And I look forward to seeing Dylan one day, maybe in AAA East or down here in Buffalo very soon.
Definitely. I'll have to send you a link to my my podcast on audio version, and maybe might be able to listen to it maybe next week or something in that. But I'm looking forward to that. And I have Chuck Swirsky coming on Friday from the Chicago Bulls, so I'm looking forward to that. But Pat, I was going to say I'm going to let you go because I know the Bisons game's tonight at Lehigh, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on live with CDP, and I'm hoping maybe again I can have you on again as a guest, and we'll talk more Buffalo Bisons baseball.
Sounds great, Chris. Thanks for the time. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and looking forward to the next time we chat.
Thanks a lot, Pat. Have a great night, and go Bisons.
You as well. Go Herd.
You too. Take care. Thank you, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast tonight with Pat Malacaro, the radio voice of the Buffalo Bisons. You can also check him out on WGR550.com as well as his Twitter page. You can follow Pat on Twitter at PatWGR as well. And also, guys, if you want to check out the Buffalo Bisons website, go to www.minorleaguebaseball.com/Buffalo. And once the border opens, I would recommend AAA baseball to anybody who's a baseball fan. The Buffalo Bisons do a great job with their ticket prices and their promotions as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And before I go, I'm just going to read some comments. Let's see. Mark Richardson, thank you for watching as always. Fun, nice guest. Please check out Pat on social media, Mark, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate that. And let's see. Guys, I'm just going to wrap this up. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know my podcast is originally scheduled tomorrow, Wednesday at 3 o'clock with Angie Hill from the Bounce 99.5 in Kitchener-Waterloo. Unfortunately, Angie has another commitment. Something came up at the last minute today. So there will be no live with CDP podcast tomorrow, Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Just to let you know, Angie Hill's going to email me and we're going to work out another day and time that Angie can come on live with CDP. So again, guys, no live with CDP podcast tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And hopefully we'll have Angie back on again sometime in August as well. So my next live with CDP podcast, Friday, August 6th, 9:45 a.m. That's 9:45 a.m. Chuck Swirsky, the radio voice of the Chicago Bulls on 670 The Score in Chicago, will be coming on, and we'll talk about his long career in broadcasting, especially radio, talk about his career when he started out in Chicago, then went to Detroit, then Toronto, and back in Chicago. And we'll talk some Bulls basketball with Chuck and their draft. I don't think we'll be able to talk free agency with Chuck at this moment, but looking forward to talking to one of the best radio play-by-play announcers in basketball, and then Chuck Swirsky. So I hope you guys can tune in this Friday at 9:45 a.m., which is 6:45 on the West Coast time, to Chuck Swirsky as well. And before I go, guys, I always do this. Live with CDP podcast audio version, which will be downloaded after this, is on Google Podcast, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and I also put my podcasts on my LinkedIn page as well. So anyways, guys, I'm going to call this a show, but we'll look forward to speaking with Chuck Swirsky again, 9:45 this Friday morning on Live with CDP. Thank you, everyone, for watching live on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch streaming. Please check out Twitch streaming as well. I'm hoping one day to get back on Facebook, but at this point, I have no idea if Facebook is going to reinstate my page or not. But the podcast will keep going on. So, and like I said, guys, if anybody's interested in a Live with CDP podcast shirt, they're $15. Just please send me a direct message on my social media account, and we'll work something out. All right, guys. Thanks again to Pat Malacaro, the radio voice of the Buffalo Bisons on ESPN 1520 in Buffalo. And please check out buffalobisons.com as well. All right, guys. Have a great night, and we'll see you guys Friday morning at 9:45. Have a great night. Take care.